Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today, we're diving into something seriously creepy, 3 spine-chilling stories that'll make you question what's lurking in the shadows of old houses. From mysterious figures and storms to homes that feel alive in all the wrong ways, this one's gonna keep you on edge. If you love a good scare, you're in the right place, so hit that subscribe button, give this video a thumbs up, and don't forget to ring the bell so you never miss an upload. Let's get into it. Story 1. The thing at the threshold. I still don't know how to explain what happened that day, and honestly, I don't think I ever will. It was just supposed to be a chill weekend at my friend Sarah's place while she was out of town. She lives in this old house, kinda tucked away in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by thick woods that stretch on forever. The place has this creepy vibe, even in the daytime, peeling paint on the outside, warped wooden floors that creak with every step, and these narrow windows that barely let any light in. I'd been there before, but never alone. And with a storm rolling in that Saturday, it felt even more isolated. Sarah left me with her cat, Molly, this scruffy little thing that doesn't care about anyone. And I figured I'd just crash on the couch, watch some TV, and wait out the rain. The wind was already howling outside, rattling the windows, and I remember thinking how glad I was to be inside. That was before everything started going weird. Around noon, the phone rang, her old landline, this clunky thing mounted on the kitchen wall. I picked it up, but it was just static. No one on the other end. I shrugged it off, thinking it was the storm messing with the lines. A couple hours later, it rang again, and I started getting annoyed. Same deal, static, faint crackling, nothing else. I checked the caller ID, and it just said unknown number, which didn't help. The house felt bigger and emptier every time it happened, like the sound was bouncing off the walls and sticking in my head. I tried to distract myself by messing with Molly, tossing her a toy, but she just sat there, staring at me with those big yellow eyes. The storm was getting worse outside, rain slamming against the roof, and the power flickered a few times, making the lights buzz. I don't know why, but I kept glancing at the front door, like I was waiting for something. It's this heavy wooden thing with a tiny peephole, scratched up and stained from years of neglect. Around 3 p.m., Molly started acting off. She wandered over to the door and just sat there, staring at it, her tail flicking back and forth. I laughed at first, thinking she was just being a weird cat, but then she wouldn't move, not even when I called her. That's when I felt this chill, like the room got colder all of a sudden, even though the heater was on. I tried to shake off that uneasy feeling and told myself Molly was just being dramatic. You know, typical cat stuff. But the way she kept staring at that door was freaking me out more than I wanted to admit. I decided to check the peephole, just to prove to myself it was nothing. The rain was coming down so hard I could barely see anything outside, just a blurry mess of gray and green from the woods. Then, for a split second, I thought I saw something move, like a shadow shifting out there. My heart jumped, but I told myself it was probably a tree branch swaying in the wind. I stepped back, laughed it off nervously, and went to grab a snack from the kitchen. The house was dead quiet, except for the storm, and every little sound, the creak of the floor, the hum of the fridge felt louder than it should have. I kept glancing back at Molly, still parked by the door, and I swear her ears were perked up like she heard something I didn't. By then, it was late afternoon, and the sky was so dark it might as well have been night. I was halfway through making a sandwich when the phone rang again, and I almost dropped the knife. This time, I didn't pick it up, just let it ring until it stopped. The silence after felt heavy, like the air was pressing down on me. I couldn't shake the thought that someone was messing with me, but who even knew I was here? Sarah's house is miles from anything. No neighbors, no random visitors. I grabbed my phone to text her, but of course, the signal was trash because of the storm. That's when I heard a faint thud, like something hitting the porch outside. My stomach dropped, and I froze, straining to listen over the rain. Molly's head snapped toward the door again, and this time her fur was standing up, puffed out like she was scared. I told myself it was just the wind knocking stuff around, maybe a loose board or something, but deep down, I wasn't buying it. The house felt wrong, like it was holding its breath, waiting for me to figure out what was going on. I couldn't just sit there pretending everything was fine anymore. So I grabbed a flashlight from the kitchen drawer. Sarah keeps it there for power outage. Zand crept toward the front door. My hands were shaking a little, and I felt stupid for being so jumpy, but Molly's staring was getting under my skin. I flicked the flashlight on and pointed it at the peephole again, trying to get a better look. The beam barely cut through the rain, but I saw it this time, a blurry shape standing out there, maybe 10 feet from the porch. It wasn't moving, just standing in the downpour, like it didn't care about the storm. My chest got tight, and I backed away fast, almost tripping over Molly, who hissed and darted under the couch. I kept telling myself it was a deer or some animal caught in the weather, but it didn't look right, too tall, too still. The house felt smaller all of a sudden, like the walls were closing in, and every shadow seemed to twitch in the corner of my eye. I didn't know what to do, so I just stood there, staring at the door, waiting for something to happen. Then the lights flickered again, longer this time, and I heard another thud, this one louder, closer, like it was right on the porch steps. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat, and I fumbled with my phone, trying to call 911. Even though the signal was spotty, the call wouldn't go through, just kept dropping, and I cursed under my breath, pacing back and forth. Molly was still under the couch, dead silent now, and that freaked me out. Even more, she's usually loud when she's mad. I grabbed a chair from the dining room and wedged it under the doorknob. Like that'd do anything if someone really wanted in. The storm was roaring outside, wind screaming through the trees. But I swear I heard something else, a low, weird hum that didn't match the weather. It was coming from the door, or maybe the walls. I couldn't tell. All I knew was I didn't feel alone anymore, and not in a good way. The house wasn't just old and creepy, it felt alive, like it was part of whatever was out there. I stood there, gripping the flashlight like it was a weapon, my eyes locked on that door. The hum was still there, faint but steady, and it was making my skin crawl. I kept thinking I should check the windows or something, but I couldn't move. My feet felt glued to the floor. The storm was loud, sure, but it didn't explain why the air in the house felt so thick, like I was breathing through a wet towel. I glanced around the living room. Sarah's old furniture looked wrong in the dim light, the shapes all warped and shadowy. The couch, the coffee table, even the faded rug, they didn't feel familiar anymore, like the house was shifting into something else. I told myself I was losing it, that the storm and being alone were messing with my head. But then Molly poked her head out from under the couch, and instead of coming to me, she bolted upstairs, her claws scratching the wood as she went. That snapped me out of it. I didn't want to be alone down here anymore. I grabbed my phone and the flashlight and followed her, taking the stairs 2 at a time. The upstairs hallway was pitch black, the storm blocking out any light from the tiny windows up there. The air was colder too, and I could see my breath in little puffs as I swung the flashlight around. Molly was at the end of the hall, crouched in front of Sarah's bedroom door, staring at it the same way she'd stared at the front door. My stomach twisted. I didn't want to go in there, but I didn't want to go back downstairs either. The hum was louder up here, buzzing in my ears, and I realized it wasn't coming from outside any. Marit was in the house, maybe in the walls. I took a step closer, and the floor creaked so loud it echoed, making me jump. I called out to Molly, my voice shaky, but she didn't budge us, kept watching that door like something was on the other side. I don't know why, but I felt like if I opened it, I'd see whatever was out in the rain, standing there waiting for me. I stood there in that dark hallway, my flashlight shaking in my hand, just staring at Sarah's bedroom door with Molly. It's just a plain door, old wood with a chipped brass knob. But right then it felt like the scariest thing I'd ever seen. The hum was drilling into my head now, and I swear it was coming from behind that door, low and steady like a heartbeat. I wanted to grab Molly and run, but my legs wouldn't move, like something was holding me there, daring me to open it. The air was so cold my fingers were going numb, and I kept catching these little movements in the shadows, like the walls were twitching. I told myself it was the storm, the wind, anything but what my gut was screaming at me. Molly's eyes were glowing in the flashlight beam, wide and unblinking, and I could feel my own heartbeat pounding in my ears. I took a deep breath, trying to calm down, but then the doorknob rattled just a tiny shake, like someone bumped it from the other side. I stumbled back, almost dropping the flashlight, and my mind went blank. I didn't want to look, but I couldn't stop myself. I crouched down and aimed the light under the door, holding my breath. There was a gap, maybe an inch, and I saw it. 2 shadows, like feet standing right there on the other side. My whole body locked up, and I couldn't even scream. Just stared at those shapes, blurry in the dark. They didn't move, didn't shift, just stood there. And I knew it wasn't Molly, because she was still beside me, growling low in her throat. The hum got louder, vibrating through the floor, and I felt this wave of panic hit me so hard I thought I'd pass out. I scrambled back, falling on my ass, and grabbed Molly, clutching her to my chest. She was stiff, claws digging into me, but I didn't care. I just needed something real to hold on to. The shadows didn't follow, didn't make a sound, but I could feel them there, waiting. I don't know how long I sat there, panting and shaking, but it felt like forever before I could even think straight again. I couldn't stay in that hallway anymore. Had to do something, anything, to feel like I wasn't losing my mind. Still holding Molly, I stumbled to my feet and bolted back downstairs, my flashlight bouncing light off the walls like some shaky horror movie. The hum followed me, quieter now, but still there, like it was stuck in the house with me. I got to the living room and slammed the bedroom door shut behind me. Didn't have a lock, but I shoved the couch against it anyway, panting like crazy. Molly squirmed out of my arms and hid under the coffee table, her eyes still huge and wild. I grabbed my phone again, praying for a signal, but it was still dead useless. The storm was raging outside, rain pounding the windows so hard I thought they'd crack, and I kept looking at the front door, expecting it to fly open any second. That chair I'd wedged under the knob was still there, but it didn't make me feel any safer. The house was creaking all around me, old wood groaning like it was alive, and I couldn't tell what was the storm and what wasn't anymore. I sank onto the floor, back against the couch, trying to breathe and figure out what the hell was happening. Those shadows under the door, they weren't my imagination. No way. I kept replaying it in my head, the way they just stood there, silent and wrong. My mind went to the figure I'd seen outside earlier, and I started wondering if it had gotten in somehow, through a window, a back door, anything. Sarah's house has this weird layout, all narrow halls and little rooms tacked on like an afterthought, and I hadn't even checked half of it. The thought made my skin crawl, picturing someone or something hiding in there with me. The hum was back, louder again, and this time I felt it in my chest, like it was shaking me from the inside. I grabbed the flashlight and swung it around the room, half expecting to see those shadows right behind me. Nothing, just the same old furniture, but it all looked off, like the angles were wrong. Then I heard it, a slow, heavy creak from upstairs, right above my head. That creak from upstairs stopped me. Cold Eye just sat there, flashlight pointed at the ceiling, waiting for it to happen again. It did, slower this time, like something heavy was dragging across the floor up there. My mouth went dry, and I couldn't move. Couldn't even blink, just listened, as it went step by step, right over where I was sitting. Molly hissed from under the table, her fur puffed up again, and I wanted to tell her to shut up, but my voice wouldn't work. The hum was buzzing so loud now, it felt like it was inside my skull, and the air got that thick, cold feeling again, pressing down on me. I kept thinking about those shadows under the door, wondering if they were moving now, coming closer. The house felt like it was shrinking, trapping me in with whatever was up there. I gripped the flashlight tighter, my knuckles white, and told myself to get up, to run, but I was too scared to even twitch. Then it stopped, just dead silence, except for the rain outside, and somehow that was worse. I don't know how I got the nerve, but I finally stood up, legs shaking like crazy, and pointed the flashlight at the stairs. The beam barely reached the top, and it was all shadows up there, twisting around like they were alive. I took a step closer, then another, because I had to. No, I couldn't just sit there waiting for it to come to me. The hum kicked up again, sharper now, and I heard that creak one more time, loud and close, like it was right at the top of the stairs. My heart was slamming against my ribs, and I almost turned back. But then I saw it at a flicker of movement, just for a second, like something ducked out of sight. I froze, shining the light right where it had been, and there was nothing, just the empty hallway, same as before. But I knew I'd seen it, this dark shape, too fast to make out. The whole house went quiet again. No creaks, no hum, just me breathing too loud and Molly growling behind me. I wanted to scream, to run out into the storm, anything but stay in there, but I couldn't leave, not yet. I stood at the bottom of the stairs, flashlight shaking in my hand, staring up into that black hallway like it was gonna swallow me whole. My brain was screaming at me to get out, but my body wouldn't listen. I was stuck, caught between running and needing to know what was up there. The silence was suffocating, heavier than the storm outside, and I kept waiting for that creak again, for something to move. Then it hit me, this smell, faint at first, like wet dirt and something sour, drifting down from upstairs. It wasn't there before, I'd have noticed, and it made my stomach churn. Molly started yowling behind me, this awful sound I'd never heard her make, and it snapped me out of my trance. I swung the flashlight back toward her, and she was clawing at the floor, trying to dig under the table like she could escape. The smell got stronger, thicker, and I gagged, covering my nose with my sleeve. That's when I heard a low, wet scrape, like something sliding across the floor up there, coming closer to the stairs. I didn't think I just bolted back to the living room, slamming the stairwell door shut and shoving the couch against it again. My hands were slick with sweat, and I could barely breathe, the smell still clinging to me like it was alive. The hum roared back, so loud it shook the walls, and I dropped the flashlight, watching it roll across the floor. The beam landed on the front door, and I saw the chair I'd wedged that was gone pushed aside, lying on its side. My knees buckled, and I hit the floor, staring at that door as it started rattling, hard, like something was slamming into it from outside. Molly was screeching now, tearing around the room, and I crawled toward the flashlight, grabbing it and swinging it wild. The windows were shaking too, the whole house groaning like it was falling apart, and that scraping sound was right above me again, louder, faster. I screamed this time, couldn't help it, pure panic ripping out of me as I realized I was trapped. No way out, with whatever was in here and out there closing in. I was on the floor, screaming and shaking, with the flashlight clutched in my hands like it could save me. The front door was banging so hard I thought it'd splinter, and that scraping from upstairs was right over my head now, like it was clawing through the ceiling. The hum was deafening, rattling my teeth, and the smell, God, that smell was choking me. This rotting, damp stench that made me want to puke. I swung the flashlight up, and for a split second, I saw long dark streaks on the ceiling, like wet handprints, smearing down toward me. My scream caught in my throat, and I scrambled back, slamming into the wall as the lights flickered one last time and went out completely. The room was pitch black except for my flashlight, and it started dying too, the beam fading to this weak little glow. Molly was somewhere in the dark, still yowling, and I could hear her crashing into stuff. The banging on the door stopped, sudden and sharp, and the silence hit me like a punch. Nothing but that wet scrape, slower now, right above me. I couldn't take it anymore. I crawled toward the kitchen, dragging myself across the floor, desperate to find something, anything, to fight back or hide. The flashlight was barely working, just enough to see the peeling wallpaper and the crooked cabinets ahead. That's when I felt a cold, wet drip on the back of my neck. I froze, heart slamming, and reached up, my fingers brushing something slimy that made me gag. Another drip hit my hand, and I jerked the flashlight up. There was this dark patch on the ceiling, spreading out like a stain, dripping that same sour muck. The scraping stopped, and I heard a thud, heavy and close, like something dropped right behind me. I whipped around, shining the dying light, and there it was, this shape, tall and hunched, standing at the edge of the room. It didn't move, didn't make a sound, just loomed there in the dark, and I swear I felt it staring at me. My whole body went numb, and I couldn't scream, couldn't breathe, just sat there, locked in place, waiting for it to come closer. I don't know how long I sat there, staring at that thing in the dark. Seconds, minutes, it all blurred together. My flashlight was almost dead, just a faint flicker now, and it barely lit up the shape in front of me. It was tall, too tall for the room, its head brushing the ceiling, and it looked wet, like it'd been out in the rain all day. I couldn't see a face, just this black outline that sucked up the light, and my brain kept trying to make sense of it, but nothing fit. The dripping had stopped, the hum was gone, and even Molly was quiet. Now everything was still, like the house was holding its breath with me. I wanted to run, to scream, to do anything, but my body wouldn't move, like it knew there was no point. Then, out of nowhere, it shifted just a little, a tilt of its head maybe, and I felt this wave of cold hit me, so bad my teeth started chattering. I squeezed my eyes shut, praying it'd go away, and when I opened them, it was gone. No sound, no movement, just an empty room staring back at me. The flashlight died completely right after that, leaving me in total darkness, and I just sat there, curled up against the kitchen wall, too scared to move. The storm was still going outside, rain hammering the roof, but inside, it was dead quiet. No hum, no scraping, nothing. I fumbled for my phone, hands shaking so bad I could barely hold it, and the screen lit up. Still no signal, but it was enough to see the room. Molly crept out from under the table, looking normal again, like nothing had happened, and that messed with me even more. I kept waiting for it to come back, for the banging or the dripping to start again, but it didn't. The chair was still tipped over by the front door, the couch shoved against the stairwell, but everything else looked untouched like I'd imagined the whole damn thing. I stayed there till morning, wide awake, jumping at every gust of wind, but whatever it was gone. The storm died down around dawn, and when the sun came up, the house felt normal again, old and creepy. Sure, but not alive like it had been. When the sun was fully up, I grabbed my stuff and got the hell out of there. Didn't even wait to clean up or fix the mess I'd left. Molly just watched me go, sitting on the couch like it was any other day, and I couldn't look at her without feeling that chill again. Driving away, I kept checking my rearview mirror, half expecting to see that shape standing in the yard, but it was just the house, quiet, sagging, surrounded by those endless woods. I called Sarah when I finally got a signal, told her I'd never stay there again, but I didn't tell her everything, not yet. How do you even explain something like that without sounding nuts? The whole day felt like a bad dream, but I can still feel that drip on my neck, still hear that hum if I think about it too long. I don't know what it was, someone stalking the place, something tied to the house, or just my mind cracking under the storm. All I know is it stopped as fast as it started, and I've got no answers, just this gnawing feeling that won't go away. I haven't been back since, and Sarah says nothing weird's happened to her there, which makes it worse somehow. She thinks I just got spooked by the storm and Molly being a freak, but I know what I saw, those shadows, that shape, the way the house turned against me. It's been months now, and I still jump at random noises, still see that dark patch on the ceiling in my nightmares. I keep wondering if it's still there, waiting in that old place for someone else to show up. I don't talk about it much. People look at you funny when you say a house tried to get you, but I had to get it out here. Maybe someone knows what it was, or maybe I just need to know I'm not alone in this. Either way, that day's burned into me, and I can't shake it. It came out of nowhere, hit me like a freight train, and then just stopped. No reason, no warning, no nothing. Story 2. The night my house turned, I still don't know where to start with this, but I guess I'll just dive in. My name's Mike, and a few weeks ago, I got laid off from my job, some warehouse gig I'd been at for years. Money was tight, and I was desperate, scrolling through every job site I could find. One night, I stumbled across this weird website I'd never seen before, full of listings that seemed too good to be true. I applied to a bunch, including one that just said warehouse assistant, immediate start. Barely an hour later, I got an email from some guy named Zach, saying he wanted to interview me that same night at 8 p.m. No company name, just an address about 20 minutes from my place. I should have checked it out more, but I was so frantic for work that I just said yes. I grabbed my keys, locked up my little house, an old, creaky 2-bedroom I'd been renting for cheap hand, headed out. The whole drive, I kept thinking how weird it was to do an interview that late, but I brushed it off. When I got there, it was just this dark, unmarked building with an empty lot, and I started feeling this pit in my stomach. I sat in my car for a bit, headlights on, staring at that building. It didn't look like any office or warehouse I'd ever seen, just a plain, squat concrete thing with no signs, no lights, nothing. I called the number Zach gave me, but it went straight to voicemail. Some generic recording that didn't even say his name. I waited maybe 15 minutes, feeling dumber by the second, before I decided it was a bust and drove back home. My house was the same as always when I pulled up, sagging porch, chipped paint, windows that never quite shut right. It's an old place, built in the 40s, I think, with these narrow halls and a musty smell that never goes away. I unlocked the door, stepped inside, and flicked on the living room light. Everything was quiet, just the usual hum of the fridge and the faint creak of the floorboards settling. I tossed my keys on the counter, grabbed a beer, and flopped on the couch, trying to shake off how creeped out I'd been. That's when I heard a soft, slow groan from the ceiling above me, like something heavy shifting up there. I told myself it was just the house being old, but my skin prickled anyway. I sat there on the couch, beer in hand, staring up at the ceiling like it was gonna tell me something. That groan came again, a little louder this time, and I couldn't shake the feeling that it wasn't just the house settling. My place has always made noises, creaks, pops, the occasional thud when the wind's bad, but this felt different, heavier somehow. I got up and walked to the base of the stairs, peering up into the dark hallway that leads to the attic door. The light switch for the upstairs hall is at the top, and I didn't feel like climbing those rickety steps just to check. I told myself I was being paranoid. That dumb interview thing had me on edge for no reason. Still, I grabbed a flashlight from the kitchen drawer. Just an old one with a weak beam man shone it up the stairs. The light barely reached the top, but I didn't see anything out of place. I turned it off, laughed at myself for being a wuss, and headed back to the couch. But then, as I sat down, I heard this faint scratching, like nails dragging across wood, coming from the same spot overhead. I froze, my heart thumping so hard I could feel it in my throat. That scratching wasn't the wind or some pipe, it was too deliberate, too slow. My house isn't big. The attic's just this cramped space above the bedrooms, full of insulation and junk the last tenant left behind. I've only been up there once, when I moved in, and it creeped me out low ceiling, dusty beams, and this one tiny window that's always fogged up. I tried to ignore the sound, turning on the TV to drown it out, but it kept going, like whatever was up there wanted me to hear it. I grabbed my phone and texted my buddy Dave, asking if he'd ever heard weird stuff in old houses like mine. He didn't reply right away, so I just sat there, listening as the scratching got sharper, more insistent. Then it stopped, dead silent, and for a second I thought I'd imagined it. But right as I started to relax, there was this loud thump like something heavy dropped right above my head. I jumped up, spilling my beer all over the floor, and stared at the ceiling, waiting for more. Nothing came, but that quiet felt worse somehow, like the house was holding its breath. I stood there, staring at that damn ceiling, my wet socks sticking to the floor from the spilled beer. My mind was racing. Maybe it was a raccoon or a squirrel that got in somehow. But that thump was too big, too solid for some animal. I grabbed the flashlight again and forced myself to head upstairs, even though every part of me was screaming to just leave it alone. The stairs creaked under my weight, louder than usual, and the air got colder the higher I went. When I hit the top, I flipped the hall light on, and the bulb flickered a couple times before settling. The attic door was at the end of the hall, this plain wooden thing with a rusty latch, and it was shut tight like always. I shone the flashlight at it anyway, half expecting to see it move or something stupid like that. Nothing happened, but the silence up there was thick, like the house was waiting for me to do something. I took a step closer, and the floor groaned under me, way louder than it should have. My hands were sweaty, and I kept telling myself I was overreacting, but I couldn't shake this feeling that I wasn't alone. I got within arm's reach of the attic door and just stood there, listening. No scratching, no thumps, just my own breathing echoing in the narrow hall. The door's paint was peeling, showing these dark streaks underneath, and I noticed how the wood looked warped, like it had been wet or something. I've never liked that. Attics, something about it, always felt off, even in daylight. I reached for the latch, my fingers shaking a little, but before I could touch it, I heard this low, raspy sound, like someone letting out a breath right behind me. I spun around so fast I almost tripped, shining the flashlight down the hall, but it was empty. My bedroom door was open a crack, same as I'd left it, and the spare room was shut tight. I told myself it was just the house, old pipes or whatever, but my chest was tight, and I could feel this cold sweat starting on my neck. I turned back to the attic door, and that's when I saw if the latch was undone, just hanging there loose. I know I didn't touch it, and I'm damn sure it was locked before. My stomach dropped, and I backed up a step, not even sure what I was scared of yet. I couldn't take my eyes off that latch, just dangling there like someone had flipped it open while I wasn't looking. My brain was scrambling for an explanation. Maybe it was loose all along, or I'd bumped it somehow, but deep down, I knew that wasn't it. I took another step back, and the floor creaked again, sharp and loud, like it was pissed I was still there. The air felt heavier now, pressing on me, and that musty smell I always ignored was stronger, almost sour. I swung the flashlight around the hall again, checking every shadow, but it was just me and that open latch staring back. I thought about going downstairs, locking the front door, and crashing at Dave's place instead, but my feet wouldn't move. It was like the house wanted me to stay, like it was daring me to open that door. I clenched my jaw, mad at myself for being such a coward, and grabbed the latch anyway. The metal was ice cold, and when I pulled, the door stuck for a second before swinging open with this awful groan that echoed through the whole house. I shone the light up into the attic, and all I could see was dust floating in the beam, no movement, no nothing. I stood there at the bottom of the pull-down ladder, my heart pounding so loud I could hear it in my ears. The attic was pitch black beyond the flashlight's reach, and that little window I mentioned earlier was just a faint gray smudge in the dark. I called out, "Hey, anyone up there?" Like an idiot, my voice cracking a little. Nothing answered. but the silence felt alive, buzzing almost. I put one foot on the ladder, testing it, and it wobbled under me, creaking like it might snap. I climbed up a couple steps, just enough to poke my head in, and the air hit my still and thick, like something had been rotting up there forever. The flashlight caught the edge of an old box, some insulation hanging loose, but then it flickered, dimming for a second before coming back. I cursed under my breath and shook it, thinking the batteries were dying. That's when I heard a faint shuffle, like something dragging across the floorboards, way back in the shadows where the light didn't reach. I froze, every hair on my arms standing up, and aimed the beam toward the sound. For a split second, I thought I saw something move a shape, low and hunched, but then it was gone, and I wasn't sure if my eyes were screwing with me. I stayed there half up the ladder, my hands gripping the sides so tight my knuckles hurt. That shuffle stopped as quick as it started, but I couldn't shake the image of that shape low dark, like it was crouching just out of sight. My flashlight was steady again, but the beam felt weaker now, barely cutting through the gloom. I swung it around, trying to catch whatever it was, but all I got was more dust and shadows bouncing off the slanted roof. The attic smelled worse up close, like damp wood and something sour I couldn't place, and it made my stomach churn. I kept telling myself it was just a rat or some junk shifting around old houses. Do that right. But my gut was screaming at me to get the hell out. I started to back down the ladder, slow and careful, when I heard this faint tap, like a finger hitting glass. I whipped the light toward that foggy little window, and my breath caught the glass was shaking, just slightly, like something had brushed it from the inside. There's no way anything could have gotten up there from outside. It's too high, no trees close enough. I nearly fell off the ladder getting down, my feet slipping on the last step as I hit the hall floor hard. My flashlight dropped and rolled, pointing back at the attic opening, and I scrambled to grab it, panting like I'd just run a mile. I slammed the door shut, not even caring how loud it banged, and fumbled with the latch until it clicked back into place. My hands were shaking so bad I could barely hold on to anything, and I backed down the hall, keeping my eyes on that door. The house was quiet again, but it didn't feel right, like that silence was hiding something. I stumbled into my bedroom, grabbed my phone off the nightstand, and checked it. Still no reply from Dave, and it was past 11 p.m. now. I thought about calling 911, but what was I gonna say? Hey, my attic's creepy. I sat on the edge of my bed, staring at the closed bedroom door, listening for any sound. Then it came, a slow, heavy creak, like footsteps pressing down on the floorboards right outside. My blood went cold, and I couldn't tell if it was coming from the hall or somewhere deeper in the house. All I knew was I wasn't alone anymore. I sat there on my bed, gripping my phone so hard my fingers ached, just staring at that bedroom door. The creak came again, slower this time, like whatever was out there was taking its time, dragging its weight across the floor. My room's small, just a bed, a dresser, and this old closet with a sliding door that sticks half the time. The walls are thin, stained yellow from years of who knows what, and the carpet's this ugly brown thing that's worn through in spots. I kept my eyes locked on the door handle, waiting for it to turn, but it didn't move. My mind flashed back to that Zach guy and the fake interview. Had he followed me home? Was this some creep messing with me? But that didn't explain the attic, the window, all the stuff that felt wrong. The creaking stopped, and I held my breath, straining to hear anything else. Then, from the closet behind me, there was this soft scrape, like something brushing against the wood inside. I whipped around, my heart slamming against my ribs, and saw the closet door was open just a crack, even though I swore I'd left it shut. I didn't want to look, but I couldn't stop myself. I had to know. I grabbed the flashlight from the bed where I'd dropped it and aimed it at the closet, my hand shaking so bad the beam danced across the wall. The gap was maybe 2 inches wide, and all I could see was darkness inside. But that scrape came again, louder, like something was shifting in there. My closet's tiny, barely big enough for my clothes and some boxers. But right then it felt like it went on forever, like something was hiding just out of reach. I slid off the bed, keeping the light on that crack, and took a step closer. My mouth was dry, and I could feel this cold sweat dripping down my back. I reached out with my free hand, hesitating, then yanked the door open fast. The flashlight lit up the inside shirts, hanging limp, a couple shoeboxes stacked up, nothing else. But the air coming out of there was freezing, like I'd opened a fridge. And it hit me with this faint whiff of something rotten. I stepped back, gagging a little, when I heard a low guttural hum. coming from somewhere deep in the house, like it was vibrating through the walls. I stumbled back from the closet, my flashlight still pointed at it, waiting for something to crawl out of that empty space. That hum was everywhere now, low and steady, like the house itself was groaning alive. I slammed the closet door shut, not caring how loud it was, and pressed my back against the bedroom wall, trying to figure out what the hell was happening. My room felt smaller, the walls closer than they should have been, and that yellow stain above the dresser looked darker, almost wet. The hum got louder, buzzing in my ears, and I could feel it in my chest, like it was pressing down on me. I thought about running downstairs, grabbing my keys, and getting out, but my legs were locked up, and my mind was spinning. This wasn't just some guy breaking in, this was something else. Something tied to this damn house I'd been too broke to move out of. I slid down the wall, sitting on the floor, and clutched my phone, ready to call someone, anyone. That's when the lights flickered, just once, and the hum cut off sharp, leaving me in dead silence again. I didn't move for what felt like forever, just sitting there, listening to my own ragged breathing. The silence was worse than the noise. It made every little sound in the house stand out, like the drip of the bathroom faucet down the hall, or the faint rustle of curtains by the window. I kept glancing at the closet, expecting that door to slide open again, but it stayed shut. My flashlight was still on, pointed at the floor, and I noticed how the beam caught these little scratches in the carpet then, jagged lines I'd never seen before, like something had clawed at it. I told myself it was old damage, something the last tenant left, but my hands wouldn't stop shaking. I finally worked up the nerve to stand, keeping my back to the wall, and edged toward the bedroom door. I cracked it open, peering into the hall, and saw the attic door still shut tight, the latch in place. But then I heard a faint whisper, like someone muttering under their breath, coming from downstairs. My stomach twisted, and I realized whatever this was, it wasn't staying in one spot, it was moving through my house. I stood there at the bedroom door, gripping the frame, trying to make sense of that whisper. It was so faint I couldn't catch any words, just the slow, raspy mumble that sounded wrong, like it didn't belong in my house. I wanted to believe it was the TV I'd left on downstairs, but I knew I'd turned it off after that thump earlier. My flashlight beam shook as I pointed it down the stairs, lighting up the peeling wallpaper and the worn steps. The living room was out of sight, just a black void at the bottom, and that whisper kept going, steady and unbroken. My house isn't fancy downstairs, it's just a cramped living room, a kitchen with chipped counters, and this little half bath that always smells like mildew. But right then, it didn't feel like my place anymore. It felt like something else had taken over. I took a step onto the stairs, the wood creaking loud under my weight, and the whisper stopped cold. My skin crawled, and I froze, waiting for it to start again, or for something worse to happen. I made it halfway down the stairs before I stopped again, my flashlight barely cutting through the dark below. The living room was dead quiet now, but I could see the couch where I'd been sitting earlier, the beer stain still wet on the floor. Everything looked normal, except it didn't feel normal. The air was too still, too heavy, like it was waiting for me to move. I took another step, and that's when I saw it. My front door was cracked open, just an inch, letting in this thin sliver of streetlight. I know I'd locked it when I got home, I always do, habit from living alone. My heart sank, and I started thinking about that Zach guy again, wondering if he'd tracked me here after all. But then I heard a slow, wet thud, like something dripping, coming from the kitchen. I swung the flashlight over, and the beam caught the edge of the counter, where this dark puddle was spreading out, thick and slow. I couldn't tell what it was from there, but the smell hit me a second later, sharp metallic, like blood. My legs went weak, and I grabbed the railing to keep from falling. I clung to that railing, my flashlight locked on that puddle creeping across the kitchen counter. It was dark, almost black in the dim light, and it was coming from somewhere behind the fridge, dripping down onto the floor with these slow, heavy plops. My house has always had its quirks, leaky pipes, weird smells, but this wasn't water or some busted jar of sauce. That metallic stink was so strong it made my eyes water, and I gagged, covering my mouth with my sleeve. I wanted to run out that cracked open front door and never look back, but my feet wouldn't budge. The kitchen's tiny, just a scratched up table, a stove that barely works, and that fridge humming away like nothing was wrong. I took a shaky step down, closer to the bottom of the stairs, and the flashlight caught something else smudges on the counter, like fingerprints, but too big and streaky to be mine. The whisper started up again, louder now, coming from the living room this time. And I swear it sounded like my name, stretched out and garbled. I nearly dropped the flashlight, my hands slick with sweat. I hit the bottom of the stairs and turned toward the living room, my beam shaking across the walls. The whisper was still there, bouncing around like it was coming from everywhere at once. And it was definitely my name, Mike. Mike dragged out in this awful, raspy voice. The couch was empty, the TV off, but the curtains by the window were swaying just a little, even though the air was dead still. I swung the light back to the front door, still cracked open, and thought about bolting again. But then I heard it a loud crack, like wood splitting, from the kitchen. I spun around, and the puddle on the counter was bigger now, spilling over the edge and pooling on the linoleum. The fridge door was open a sliver, even though I hadn't touched it, and something was dripping from inside, dark and thick. My chest tightened, and I backed up toward the front door, my shoes squeaking on the floor. The whisper turned into a low laugh, short and sharp, and I felt this cold rush down my spine. Whatever was in my house, it wasn't human. It couldn't be. I backed up until my hand hit the front door, fumbling for the knob while keeping my flashlight on that kitchen mess. The laugh cut off, and the house went quiet again, but that puddle kept spreading, glistening in the light like it was alive. I yanked the door open and stumbled out onto the porch, the cold night air hitting me like a slap. My house looked the same from the outside, sagging roof, chipped paint, that dim streetlight flickering across the street, but I could still feel it watching me, like the windows were eyes. I ran to my car, parked crooked in the driveway from when I'd gotten back earlier, and locked myself inside. My hands were shaking so bad I could barely get the key in the ignition, but I didn't care. I just needed to get away. I glanced back at the house, and for a second, I thought I saw something in the living room window, a shadow, tall and thin, just standing there. My stomach flipped, and I peeled out of the driveway, tires squealing on the asphalt. I didn't know where I was going, just that I couldn't stay there. I drove around for maybe an hour, ending up at some empty gas station, lot a few miles away. My phone was still in my pocket, and I finally checked it. Still no text from Dave, but it was almost 2 a.m. Now, I sat there, engine off, trying to calm down, but every time I closed my eyes, I saw that puddle, heard that laugh, felt that cold coming out of the closet. I kept replaying the night Zach, the fake interview, coming home to all this, and wondered if it was connected. Maybe that creep had broken in, messed with my head, but that didn't explain the whispers, the hum, the way the house felt. I thought about calling the cops, but I didn't have proof of anything, just a trashed kitchen and a story that sounded nuts. I looked at my keys, then back toward the direction of my house, and realized I didn't even know if I could go back. That place wasn't just old and creepy anymore. It was something else, something I couldn't explain. I stayed in that lot until the sun started coming up, too scared to move, too freaked out to think straight. When the sun finally peeked over the horizon, I was still in that gas station lot, my hands cramped from gripping the steering wheel all night. The light made everything look less terrifying. My car, the cracked pavement, the flickering neon sign, but I couldn't shake what happened. I kept thinking about my house, that puddle, the way the fridge door had opened on its own. I decided I had to go back, at least to grab some stuff, and figure out what to do next. I drove slow, my stomach in knots, and when I pulled up, the place looked normal. Again, just an old beat-up rental, baking in the morning sun. The front door was still cracked open, exactly how I'd left it, and I sat there in the car for a good 10 minutes before I worked up the guts to get out. I grabbed a tire iron from my trunk, just in case, and stepped onto the porch. The air was warm now, but the second I pushed the door wider, that sour metallic smell hit me again. Faint, but there. I tightened my grip on the tire iron and stepped inside, my shoes crunching on something gritty. Dried flecks of that dark puddle smeared across the floor. I walked straight to the kitchen, my flashlight dead now, but the daylight streaming through the windows was enough. The puddle was still there, dried up in spots, sticking to the counter and floor like old paint. The fridge door was shut again, and when I yanked it open, nothing, just some beers, a carton of milk, and a ketchup bottle. All normal, but the shelves were wet, streaked with something dark that had dripped down and pooled at the bottom. I slammed it shut, my heart racing, and checked the living room couch still there, TV off, curtains still. The whispers, the laugh, all that was gone, like it had never happened. I went upstairs, tire iron ready, and the attic door was latched tight. The closet in my room closed up like I'd left it, Everything was quiet, normal, but it didn't feel right. It was too perfect, like the house was pretending for me. I grabbed a bag, stuffed some clothes in it, and got out fast, locking the door behind me. That was it. I was done. Whatever happened that night stopped as quick as it started, and I've got no clue why. I'm crashing at Dave's now, but I still wake up hearing that hum sometimes, wondering what the hell was in my house. Story 3, The Biker in the Shadows. I've been living in this old farmhouse for a few years now, ever since I retired. It's way out in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by fields that stretch on forever, with a long gravel driveway leading up to it. The house itself is this big, creaky, two-story thing, all faded wood and peeling paint, with these narrow windows that always seem to catch the light wrong, like they're watching you back. That day, it was pouring rain, sheets of it slamming against the roof, the kind of storm that makes you glad to be inside. I was just sitting by the kitchen window, sipping coffee, when I saw this guy on a dirt bike come roaring down my driveway. He was soaked, head to toe in black gear, and he pulled up near the garage. I figured he was lost or something, but he just sat there, staring at the house for a good minute, water dripping off him. Then, without a word or a wave, he turned around and peeled out, disappearing into the rain. It left me rattled like, who does that? I tried to shrug it off, telling myself it was nothing, just some weirdo passing through. But the way he looked at the house, man, it stuck with me all afternoon. Later that night, the storm got worse, like apocalyptic, level bad. Thunder was shaking the walls, and the wind was howling through every crack in this old place. I was upstairs in my bedroom, trying to read, when I heard it, that same dirt bike engine cutting through the noise of the storm. My stomach dropped. I went to the window, peering out into the dark, but I couldn't see much through the rain. Then the headlights flicked off, just like that, and it went quiet, too quiet. I stood there, holding my breath, straining to hear anything over the wind. That's when I caught it, these slow, wet thuds, like footsteps crunching in the mud outside. They weren't rushed or random, they were circling the house, steady and deliberate. My heart started pounding, and I grabbed the old shotgun I keep by the bed. I wasn't sure what I was dealing with, but no way was I letting whoever it was catch me off guard. The whole vibe of the house shifted like it knew something was wrong too, creaking louder than usual, almost warning me. I crept downstairs, shotgun in hand, trying to keep my steps light on those old wooden floors that groaned with every move. The house felt alive in the worst wail, like every shadow was stretching toward me. Every gust of wind rattling the windows sounded like whispers. I could still hear those footsteps outside, sloshing through the mud, circling closer to the back porch. The kitchen was pitch black, except for flashes of lightning that lit up the room for a split second, showing me glimpses of the cabinets, the table, the door. I stood by the sink, peering out the window, but the rain was too thick, just a wall of water and darkness. My hands were sweaty on the gun, and I kept telling myself to calm down, that maybe it was just some drunk idiot messing around. But then the footsteps stopped, right outside the back door, and I swear I heard this low, raspy breathing, like it wasn't just the wind anymore. The hair on my neck stood up, and I froze, waiting for something, anything, to happen. The house went dead silent, like it was holding its breath with me. That's when I noticed the back door handle twitched just a little, like someone was testing it. My heart slammed into my throat, and I aimed the shotgun right at the door, my finger hovering over the trigger. Nothing moved for what felt like forever, just me standing there, staring at that rusty old knob, praying it wouldn't turn. Then, out of nowhere, there was this loud bang against the side of the house, like something heavy hit the wall hard enough to shake the whole frame. I jumped, almost pulled the trigger by accident, and stumbled back into the counter. The footsteps started up again, faster this time, splashing through the mud like they were running. I bolted to the living room window, trying to catch a glimpse, but all I saw was rain and shadows. My mind was racing. Part of me wanted to yell out, demand who was there, but my gut told me to stay quiet. Whatever was out there, it didn't feel human, not fully. The house seemed to agree, creaking and groaning like it was scared too. I stood there by the living room window, gripping the shotgun so tight my knuckles hurt, just listening to those footsteps fade off into the storm. The house felt colder now, like the heat got sucked out with whatever was lurking outside. I kept telling myself it was over, that they'd left, but I couldn't shake this nagging feeling like I was still being watched. The old chandelier above me flickered, even though the power hadn't gone out, and I swear I saw the shadows on the wall twitch, stretching longer than they should have. I turned on every light I could, reach kitchen, hallway, living room, hoping it'd make me feel safer. But it didn't. If anything, it made the place look creepier. All those bare bulbs throwing harsh light on the cracked plaster and warped floorboards. I kept glancing at the windows, expecting to see a face pressed against the glass. But it was just rain streaking down. Still, that breathing sound I'd heard earlier, it was stuck in my head, replaying over and over, low and rough, like it was right behind me. I spun around a couple times, checking corners, but nothing was there. At least, nothing I could see. I decided I couldn't just stand there waiting for something worse to happen. I had to do something. So I grabbed my truck keys off the hook by the door, figuring I'd get out there, turn on the high beams, and see what the hell was going on. My hands were shaking as I pulled on my boots, the shotgun still tucked under my arm. The house felt like it was pressing in on me, the walls too close, the air too thick. I stepped onto the front porch, and the wind hit me hard, slamming rain into my face. I could barely hear anything over the storm, but I swore there was this faint tapping like fingernails on glass coming from one of the upstairs windows. I didn't look up. I didn't want to. I just bolted for the truck, jumped in, and fired it up. The headlights cut through the rain, lighting up the yard, the garage, the side of the house. That's when I saw him standing there by the kitchen window, this guy in black, holding a hammer in his hand, staring right at me. My blood ran cold, and for a second, I couldn't move. Just locked eyes with him through the windshield, rain pouring down. I sat there in the truck, frozen, staring at this guy through the rain-soaked windshield, his figure all blurry but unmistakable. He didn't flinch, just stood there by the kitchen window with that hammer dangling from his hand, his head tilted like he was sizing me up. The high beams lit him up, and I could see his clothes were soaked through, clinging to him. But his face, I couldn't make it out, just a dark smear under a hood. My hands fumbled for the shotgun on the passenger seat, my heart hammering so loud I could feel it in my ears. I didn't know what he wanted, why he was here, why he had a hammer butt. Every instinct screamed at me to get the hell out or do something fast. Then, before I could even lift the gun, he turned and bolted, disappearing around the side of the house into the dark. I slammed my hand on the horn, hoping it'd scare him off for good, but the sound just got swallowed by the storm. I sat there, breathing hard, watching the spot where he'd been, half expecting him to pop back up. The house loomed in the headlights, looking more menacing than ever, like it was part of whatever game this guy was playing. I didn't want to get out of the truck. Everything in me was yelling to just drive off and not look back, but I couldn't leave the house wide open like that. What if he came back? What if he was already inside? I took a deep breath, grabbed the shotgun, and stepped out into the rain, the mud sucking at my boots. The wind was brutal, whipping my hair into my face, and the cold soaked through my jacket in seconds. I kept the gun raised, swinging the barrel toward every shadow, every corner of the house. The tapping I'd heard earlier was gone now, replaced by this low, humming sound like the storm itself was buzzing in my skull. I edged around to the kitchen window where he'd been standing, and my stomach twisted when I saw it. Muddy streaks on the glass, like he'd been pressing his hands there, smearing it. There was no sign of him now, just the rain washing those marks away, but I could feel that something wasn't right. The house felt heavier, like it was waiting for me to come back inside. I checked the back door, still locked. Thank God, but that didn't calm me down. I kept hearing that raspy breathing in my mind, and I couldn't tell if it was my imagination or something real still out there. I stood there by the back door, rain pounding down on me, trying to figure out what to do next. The muddy streaks on the kitchen window were almost gone now, washed away by the storm, but they'd burned themselves into my head. I kept the shotgun up, scanning the yard, the garage, the tree line anywhere. That guy could have gone. The house behind me felt like it was leaning over my shoulder, this big, hulking thing that didn't want me to leave. I couldn't shake the idea that he wasn't just some random creep that. There was something off about him, something tied to this place. The humming in my ears got louder, almost like a vibration running through the ground, and I started wondering if I was losing it. My hands were numb from the cold, my clothes sticking to me, and every flash of lightning made me jump, expecting to see him again. I decided I had to go back inside, lock everything up tight, and call the sheriff's storm or no storm. I wasn't dealing with this alone. I turned toward the porch, and that's when I noticed the garage door was cracked open, just an inch, swaying in the wind. I hadn't left it like that. I cursed under my breath and slogged over to the garage, my boots sinking into the mud with every step. The shotgun felt heavier now, like my arms were giving out, but I wasn't letting it drop. I got to the door and nudged it open with my foot, the hinges squealing loud enough to make me wince. Inside, it was dark to see much past the edge of the headlights spilling in from the truck. The air smelled damp and sour, like wet wood and something else I couldn't place. I took a step in, and my foot hit something soft, looked down and saw an old rag, soaked and muddy like someone had dropped it. My gut twisted. I hadn't been in there all day, and that rag wasn't mine. I swung the shotgun around, half expecting that guy to lunge out from behind the workbench or the stacks of boxes. Nothing moved, but the shadows in the corners looked wrong to thick, to still. Then I heard it again, that raspy breathing, faint but close, coming from somewhere deeper in the garage. I backed up fast, nearly tripping, and slammed the door shut, my hands shaking so bad I could barely grip the handle. Whatever was in there, I wasn't sticking around to find out. I stumbled back from the garage, my heart racing so fast I thought I'd give out, and made a beeline for the house. The rain was still coming down hard, soaking me through, but I barely felt it anymore. All I could think about was getting inside and locking every door. That breathing sound was echoing in my head, and I kept glancing over my shoulder, expecting to see that guy or whatever he was charging at me with that hammer. I hit the porch steps, slipped on the wet wood, and caught myself on the railing, the shotgun banging against my side. The house didn't feel safe anymore. It felt like a trap, like it was letting this happen, but I didn't have anywhere else to go. I burst through the front door, slammed it shut, and fumbled with the deadbolt, my wet fingers slipping on the metal. The lights were still on, but they flickered again, dimming for a second before snapping back. I stood there, dripping water onto the floor, listening hard over the storm. No footsteps, no breathing, just the wind howling outside. But I knew it wasn't over. That guy was still out there, and this house wasn't done with me yet. I grabbed my phone off the kitchen counter, my hands still trembling, and dialed the sheriff's number I'd saved from some dumb property dispute years back. The line crackled, cutting in and out with the storm, but it finally rang through. I paced the kitchen, shotgun propped against my shoulder, spitting out what happened. The biker, the footsteps, the guy with the hammer. The dispatcher sounded skeptical, her voice all static and bored, saying they'd send someone when the weather cleared. I wanted to scream at her, tell her I might not make it that long, but I just hung up, feeling more alone than ever. The house creaked louder now, like it was mocking me, and I kept checking the windows, the doors, anything he could get through. That's when I saw it, a shadow moving across the living room wall, slow and deliberate, like someone was pacing outside. I swung the gun toward the window, but there was nothing, just rain and darkness. My breath hitched, and I realized the shadow wasn't matching the storm's rhythm. It was too steady, too real. I backed up toward the stairs, my eyes locked on that wall, waiting for it to move again. I stood there at the bottom of the stairs, shotgun aimed at the living room window, watching that shadow slide across the wall like it had a mind of its own. My chest was tight, like I couldn't get enough air, and the house felt smaller, the walls pressing in closer with every breath. The lights flickered again, longer this time, and I heard a low thud from upstairs, like something heavy dropped on the floor. My head snapped up, and I swear I felt the hair on my arms stand straight. I hadn't been up there since I grabbed the gun earlier, and no way that sound was just the storm. I wanted to run out the door, drive off into the night, but the truck was too far, and that guy could still be out there waiting. The shadow on the wall stopped moving, just froze there, stretching long and jagged across the peeling paint. I couldn't tell if it was him or something else, but it didn't matter. Everything about this house was screaming at me to get out, and yet I couldn't move. I took a shaky step up the stairs, telling myself I had to check, had to know what was up there. The wood groaned under my weight, louder than it ever had, like the house was trying to warn me off or daring me to keep going. Halfway up the stairs, I stopped cold. There was this smell, faint but sharp, like wet dirt and rust, drifting down from the second floor. It wasn't there before, and it hit me like a punch, turning my stomach. I gripped the banister, my knuckles white, and kept climbing, the shotgun shaking in my other hand. The hallway up top was dark, even with the lights on downstairs, and the air felt thick, heavy with something I couldn't name. I reached the landing and flicked on the hall light, but it buzzed and died out after a second, leaving me with just the faint glow from below. My bedroom door was cracked open. I'd left it shut hand. That thud came again, softer this time, from inside. My mouth went dry, and I edged closer, nudging the door with the barrel of the gun. It swung open slow, creaking loud enough to make me flinch, and I saw my room bed unmade, curtains flapping in the wind from a window I hadn't opened, muddy footprints smeared across the floor, leading right to the closet. I stopped breathing. My eyes locked on that closet door, cracked just enough to show a sliver of black inside. Whatever was in there, it wasn't just some guy with a hammer anymore. This felt wrong, deep in your bones wrong. I stood there in the bedroom doorway, staring at that closet. The muddy footprints smeared across the floor like a trail I didn't want to follow. The storm outside was still raging, wind slamming against the house, but inside it was dead quiet, too quiet, like the air was holding its breath. My hands were slick with sweat, the shotgun slipping in my grip, and I could feel my pulse pounding in my neck. I took a step closer, slow, like I was moving through mud myself, and the smell got stronger, wet earth and something sour, like decay. I kept telling myself it was just that guy, just some creep who broke in, but my gut knew better. The closet door creaked, shifting an inch wider on its own, and I swear I saw something move in that sliver of darkness, something too quick, too wrong to be human. My voice caught in my throat. I wanted to yell, demand who was there, but nothing came out. I raised the gun, aiming at that crack, and my finger brushed the trigger. The house groaned around me, a deep, rumbling sound, like it was alive and pissed off. I didn't want to open that door, but I couldn't just stand there. I had to know. I lunged forward, kicking the closet door wide open, the wood banging against the wall so hard it shook the room. Inside it was empty, just my old coats and boxers, nothing else. But those footprints stopped right at the edge, like whatever made them vanished into thin air. I stood there, chest heaving, staring into that cramped space, waiting for something to jump out. Nothing did. The smell was choking now, thick and heavy, and I backed up, swinging the gun around the room, half expecting that guy to be behind me. The window rattled, rain pelting the glass, and I saw more mud streaked on the sill like someone climbed in and out. My head was spinning. None of this made sense. Then I heard it again, that raspy breathing, low and steady. But this time, it wasn't coming from the closet. It was behind me, right at the bedroom door. I spun around, gun up, and saw nothing, just the empty hallway. The flickering light from downstairs casting shadows that twisted on the walls. My legs felt weak, like they'd give out, and I realized I wasn't alone in this house, not by a long shot. Whatever was here, it wasn't just some biker in the storm anymore. I backed out of the bedroom, shotgun still up, my eyes darting between the hallway and those twisting shadows on the walls. That breathing sound was everywhere now, behind me, above me, like it was seeping out of the house itself. My boots slipped on the muddy floor, and I caught myself on the banister, nearly tumbling down the stairs. The air felt electric, buzzing against my skin, and the lights downstairs flickered hard, plunging the place into dark for a split second before snapping back on. I stumbled down the steps, 2 at a time, my mind screaming at me to get out, to run. But my truck keys were still in my pocket, and I wasn't sure I'd make it that far. The living room looked wrong. Now the furniture seemed off, like it had shifted an inch, and that shadow on the wall was back, stretching longer than anything outside could have made. I swung the gun toward the window again, rain hammering the glass, and I saw a quick flash of something black darting past outside. My stomach lurched. I couldn't tell if it was him or something else, but it didn't matter. This house was done with me playing tough. I grabbed my jacket off the couch, ready to bolt, when the breathing stopped, sudden and sharp, like someone flipped a switch. I froze, standing there in the middle of the living room, waiting for it to start again, but it didn't. The silence was worse, thick, heavy, like the house was holding its breath, daring me to move. I took a step toward the front door, and the lights flickered one last time before going out completely, leaving me in pitch black with just the shotgun and the sound of rain. I fumbled for the doorknob, my hands shaking so bad I dropped the keys and scrambled to pick them up off the wet floor. My chest was tight, my breath coming in gasps, and I kept expecting something to grab me from behind those muddy hands. That hammer? Anything? I got the door open, the wind slamming it back against the wall, and I ran for the truck, not looking back. I jumped in, started it up, and peeled out of there, the headlights cutting through the storm, showing me nothing but empty fields and that damn house shrinking in the rear view. My heart didn't slow down the whole drive to town, and when I glanced back one last time, I swore I saw a figure standing on the porch, black, still, just watching me go. I didn't stop driving until I hit the sheriff's station, soaked and shaking, barely able to get the words out. The sheriff came out the next day, once the storm cleared, and checked the place over. They found the muddy footprints, the streaks on the window, even that rag in the garage, but no sign of the guy or whatever it was. They said it was probably just some drifter, maybe strung out, messing with me in the storm. But I could tell they didn't buy it any more than I did. I haven't gone back to that house since, not to live, not even to grab my stuff. It's still sitting there, empty. Last I heard, and I don't care. That night stopped as quick as it started. No explanation, no reason, just me in that place locked in some messed up standoff. I still hear that breathing sometimes, late at night when it's quiet, and I can't shake the feeling the house is waiting for me to come back. I won't. I'd rather sleep in my truck forever than step foot in there again. No one believes me when I say it wasn't just a person out there, but I know what I felt. That house wasn't right, and whatever was with me that night, it wasn't human, not all of it. I don't know what it wanted, and I'm scared I'll never find out.